tensegrity part 2. The first practice, we started to scratch the surface of compressive and tensile loads and how we can find more support under, or stability or strength under a stretch or a reach or tension, and then how we can find more expansion or more length, more reach under compressive loads. We're going to follow that, continue to explore. It's like never-ending exploration with the body and with science. But we're going to be thinking more form follows function. So we're going to focus a little bit more on the pelvis, the hips, and the knees. Exploring those three areas at different angles, and then how at different angles we can disperse or distribute load as evenly as possible, as globally as possible. The function and the purpose of our body parts is what influences the structure and the position. So our pelvis is weight bearing, it supports our upper body, it transfers weight to our lower body. Our hips articulate movement, head of the femur in the socket. Our knees help extend and flex the leg, and then that joint also acts as a mechanical lever in between the thigh, the femur, and your tibia, your shin bone. So our bones, actually being totally unique and individual, they determine our range of motion. So we're just going to play here and just kind of see what we have available to us. We used the wall in the last practice. We're not going to in this practice. But the idea of challenging the postures in an open chain versus closed chain was just to see how we could create, or rather maybe distribute that load as evenly as possible in open and closed. When you're in a closed chain movement or exercise, you usually can create more compression and tension. So sometimes it's easier to like understand the proprioception of where you're at, what's happening at your joints, what's happening at the bottom of your arm, bottom of your leg, so on and so forth. The last little bit is our bones adapt to the stresses, the load, the forces that we place upon it. So biologically, we're always remodeling and growing. Our bones are always remodeling and growing, and they do so in response to those loads. For this practice, we're going to view bone as a structure that is in fact designed to handle stress under compressive, tensile, torquing loads, and at different angles. Let's start on our backs. Keep a block handy. And take just a few breaths here, feet flat, knees bent. You can bring your hands to your pelvis if you'd like, and start to articulate some movement through your pelvis by rotating it up and down. So as you rotate it forward, you're coming into an anterior tilt, probably feeling and creating some more space in between the floor and your low back. As you come into a posterior tilt, you are rotating the pelvis backward or up, so the sit bones start to travel towards your hamstrings. You can start with a really small range of motion here, and then notice how you're distributing load as your pelvis is moving through space. And then you can start to challenge it and create larger movements if it's appropriate in your body, of course. And just notice what's at play when you create these larger movements. when you go into a posterior tilt, what happens with your feet? Do you feel as though they're pressing into the floor more? And then come to a neutral spine, neutral pelvic bowl. Reach the right leg up. We're going to flex the foot for this. And then we're going to have the hip, knee, and toes track one another. So we're going to start to externally rotate. All three of those points are going to go out toward the right. And then we're going to internally rotate. And all three of those points are going to come in toward midline. I just want you to feel the head of the femur in the hip socket. And I want you to get an idea of what your internal external rotation is on this side. And then come back to neutral. Place that foot on the floor. Opposite one comes up, flex the foot, externally rotate, and then internally rotate. Two things to notice is if something else is happening in your leg, and then how much internal external rotation you have on one side compared to the other, because it's going to be different. And then come back to center. Take just a moment. If you don't do a lot of that type work, you're going to probably feel this in your hips right now, deep in your hip joint. And then we're going to bring the legs up to about 90 degrees. So knees are just going to be over the hips. And then you're going to take a block and bring it in between your legs. Any size that you need, depending on your hips. On a scale of 1 to 10, just bring a slight engagement to that block, maybe like a 3. And then we're going to internally rotate just the right leg. And just do that maybe 2 more times. So as you internally rotate, the right foot is going to go out toward the right. And then come back and internally rotate just the left. I don't know if you can see, but for me, I don't have as much internal rotation on my left hip as I do my right. And then you're going to come back and we're going to do both at the same time. And then just do one more. And then come back to that 90-degree angle. We got to play with some movement of the pelvis. We got to play with movement of the femurs. We're going to kind of tap into the knee now. So we're going to create a little bit of space, if you will, in the knee joint as we flex and extend. So right now you're at about 90 degrees or whatever works in your body. We're going to think of reaching the thigh bones, the head of the femur, down and creating a lot of stability with the leg, with the upper leg, and with the hip joint and the pelvis. As we go to extend the legs, straighten the legs, we're going to think of reaching the shin bone, the tibia, toward the foot. So it's like you are creating, it's like the two bones are pulling away from one another. And then come back to that starting position. And then just do that 2 more times. And maybe you just visualize it. Maybe you're feeling it. For me, I feel it a lot in my hamstrings. I feel it a lot in my hip joint due to the stability I'm trying to create. And then I feel it in my knees in the sense that it just feels really good. And then come back and bring the feet down to the floor. Take just a moment here to explore the feeling, the sensations on the right side compared to the left. And then last thing, we're going to bring the block back. We're going to come back to that 90-degree angle. A little bit of tension on the block without really thinking of anything. Just extend the legs up and then back down. And do it just a couple of times. And then one more time. So I don't know what you felt, but for me, I felt more like I was initiating that movement in the joint, which is not wrong. We're just exploring different ways to initiate movement, different ways to transfer load at different angles, but just to be able to compare and contrast the two. So bring the feet down to the floor. Take a full inhale, exhale here. Start to reach the head of the femurs to the hip sockets. We're going to just gently start to feel the big toe, little toe, mound, and heel pressing into the floor. The femur, or the tibia, the shin bones, are going to follow as we lift the hips up to a bridge. Take a full breath in, and then exhale. We're going to lower it down. And see if we can duplicate something similar one more time. So start to feel and notice the big toe, little toe, mound, and heel, and then allow the shin bone to reach toward that as the head of the femur is reaching to the hip sockets, creating stability as the pelvis lifts up into space. Let's stay here. Keep that action of the legs, bring the arms up. And then as we start to travel the right arm across midline, over diagonal to the left and back, how are we distributing that load? In our feet, in our hamstrings, and our quads. What else do you feel or explore or notice? And then we'll just come back to center, take a breath in. Exhale, the arms can come down to the floor first, and then the hips. And then we're going to bring the soles of the feet together, knees out to the side. Take just a moment here to reset, to breathe, to notice again how the knees feel, how the hip joint feels. And then bring the legs on together onto your chest. Give yourself a little hug, a little rock. Maybe some figure eights. And then we're going to make our way to downward facing dog. And just take a few petals here. And then inhale, roll out to a high plank. And stay in high plank for a few moments. Ground down through your feet and through your hands. And feel that stability, reaching the crown of the head forward and the sit bones back. As we move through plank and down dog, we're going to try to initiate moving back to downward facing dog with our hips. As we come out to high plank, we're going to do our best to initiate it from the shin bone. I know it sounds crazy. Take a breath in, and then as you exhale, think of the hips moving back, so those hip creases, into downward facing dog. And then we're going to inhale, come out to high plank with the tibias reaching toward the feet. And do that a couple more times, slowly. Hip joint initiates the downward facing dog part. And then the tibia initiates coming out to plank. Just to get a sense of what's happening in and around the knee, to get a sense of what's happening in and around the hips. Make your way back to downward facing dog. I mean, you might be feeling this if you're doing it globally, in your shoulders, in your abs. And then take a few wiggles. And then without thinking about it, inhale, roll out to your high plank, and then exhale back to downward facing dog. And do that just a couple times and see if you notice any differences. Maybe in the knees, maybe in the hips, maybe just globally that experience. Come back to downward facing dog of how you're distributing that load. Take a few petals here and there. Inhale, and then as you exhale, make your way to the top of the mat. And come into a forward fold and maybe sway a couple times side to side. Come to center, inhale to a halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stand to mountain pose. Exhale, hands come to heart center. One round of sun salutations because I love them. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, step the right foot back, lower that knee to the floor. Inhale, one breath, reach up. Exhale, hands to the mat, downward facing dog. Inhale, roll out to your high plank. And then exhale, lower your knees, lower the chest. Inhale, end knee size cobra. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. Take a full breath in. As you exhale, step the right foot forward, lower the back left knee. Inhale, reach up, one breath. Exhale, hands to the mat, step up and fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stand to mountain pose. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Last time on the other side, inhale, reach. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, step the left foot back, lower that knee. Inhale, one breath. Exhale, hands to the mat, downward facing dog. Inhale, roll out to your high plank. Exhale, all the way down. Any size cobra. Exhale, back to downward facing dog. Full breath in. As you exhale, step the left foot forward, lower the back right knee. Inhale, one breath. Exhale, hands to the mat, step up and fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stand to mountain pose. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Inhale, reach up. As we exhale, can we initiate movement at the hips coming into chair pose? Go as slow as you need. You can bring the arms out in front. You can bring the hands to heart center. As you're here in this position, this chair, notice how you load or distribute that load through your feet. Notice knees, notice hips, notice the orientation of your pelvis. Inhale, reach it up to chair pose. Exhale one more time, initiate that movement at the hips. Again, any variation with your arm. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, initiate the movement with the knees, which is not something I would ever necessarily on a regular basis say to do. But I want you to just kind of be able to tell and experience the difference. And with looking at me, you'll probably be able to see a difference. And then inhale, reach back up. And then exhale, initiating that movement with the knees. You're just exploring here. You know your body. Listen to it if it's telling you something. Take a full breath in. Exhale, come back up. And then bring the arms to the side. And just feel for a moment. Inhale, reach the arms. Exhale, make your way into chair pose. Did you notice yourself getting there one way compared to how you maybe usually do it? Can we bring the arms out in front and then reach the left across midline over to the right and back to center, and then the right across midline over to the left. And do that just a couple more times, one more time each side. And notice what you are doing with the feet, with the pelvis. And then come back to center. We're gonna open up right arm, open up to the right. We're gonna come back to center, and then left arm. And then come back to center, take a breath in, exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, and then exhale, step it back to downward facing dog, and allow yourself to notice the right side, left side. And then maybe take a few wiggles, a few movements. And bringing our focus back to our pelvis, we're going to step the right foot forward and then come into high crescent lunge. Whatever high crescent lunge feels the best in your body right at the moment. Trying to find a fairly neutral range of our spine. So depending on how you are, if you're like really hyper extending the low back, maybe step that foot, the back foot up a little bit. Maybe come into that rotation of the pelvis. Find neutral range of the spine, because from here, we're going to rotate. I like to call it a hand sandwich. If you were to bring your hands to your hip creases, you're gonna hand sandwich that right side. We're gonna hinge forward. So the rest of the spine stays neutral, but we're just rotating the pelvis forward, coming into a different angle, loading the right leg a little differently, what's happening with the back left leg. Make adjustments so you're evenly distributing through both of your legs, through the arms, through the head. Take the left arm, bring it across midline. Come on back, right arm across midline. Come on back, staying in that hinge. However it's reasonable, you're gonna bring the right arm out, rotating to the right, come back to center, left arm rotates, come back to center. Stay in that hinge, take a breath here, and then exhale, hands to the mat, downward facing dog. It's a lot for the legs. Stay here, breathe, notice. Compare right to left. It's a lot of work. Step your left foot forward and then come up into your high crescent lunge. Check in with your crescent, neutral range of your spine. And then hands come down to the hip creases, hinge forward. Hand sandwich the left hand, reach the arms up. And then same thing here, right arm comes across midline, comes back, and then left arm. One more time each side. What's happening with the right foot? Are we only using the left? Can we distribute weight through both the legs as evenly as possible? Left arm's gonna open up, reach, stay in that hinge, come forward, right arm. Coming back, take a breath here, and then exhale, hands to the mat, downward facing dog. Take just a moment to feel. Initiate your high plank with your tibia. So inhale, reach the tibia toward the heel, Coming out to your high plank. And then initiate downward facing dog with the hips. Take a full inhale, exhale. And then inhale, however you'd like, roll out to your high plank. Exhale, lower your knees, lower the belly. Inhale, any size cobra. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. Full breath in. Exhale it out. One more time, breathe in and exhale. We're gonna walk the feet toward the front. Coming into a forward fold, grab your blocks. Have them at the front of your mat. Shake it out here. Let the limbs go. Maybe sway side to side. Ooh, making noises. And then inhale to a halfway lift. Bring the hands to the blocks. Start to press the hands into the blocks, creating that support, that equal work of the upper body. The crown of the head is reaching forward. Ground down through the left leg, or rather the right leg. Right leg grounds down, big toe, little toe mound. We're just going to get light in the left leg and then extend the leg back behind. I'm coming into warrior three. As you're here in warrior three, play with a little bit of extension, or rather external rotation of the left leg and internal rotation. But as you're playing with that rotation, you're really creating a lot of stability, a lot of reach and expansion at the left hip. So we're not dumping down into that right hip, the base leg. So to repeat, left leg is internally, externally rotating. Right leg is your base. You're creating as much reach in the hip socket as you can. Come back to a neutral with that left leg. Take a breath in. As you exhale, we're going to bend the right knee, and the left knee is going to come behind the right, coming into a Jiva squat. Press the arms into the blocks. Press the right leg. Inhale. Really press and reach the left leg back, creating support. And then exhale one more time, coming into that Jiva. And then make your way back. Place the left leg down on the floor. Take your feet a little bit wider. Sway side to side. Bring the feet back to about hip distance. Hands to the blocks. Press down. Reach through the big toe, little toe mound of the left foot. Get light in the right. See how it feels to extend the right leg behind you. So create expansion here at the hip, and then create as much support on the right leg as we internally, externally rotate. Globally responding to this load that we're under, that our bones, our muscles, our tendons are thriving on right now. Come back to neutral. Press down with the three limbs that are connected to the floor. Reach the right leg back. Crown of the head forward. Take a breath in. Exhale, bend the knees. Right knee comes behind the left leg. Inhale, reach back. And then exhale one more time. Inhale, reach back. Exhale, bring that foot down to the floor. Take your stance just a little bit wider. Come into a forward fold. Just maybe sway, shake it out side to side. And bring the feet back to about hip distance. Inhale to a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant the hands a step back to downward facing dog. Take a full breath in. Exhale it out. Coming back to initiating plank with the tibia, with the shin bones. Reach them toward the heels as you come out into your high plank. And then initiate downward facing dog at the hip creases, at the hip joint. Take a full breath in, and then as you exhale, step the right foot forward and come into warrior two. For giggles, take a peek and notice where your right heel is compared to your left foot. I only bring this up because sometimes we hear to have the heel in line with the arch, but that's totally going to depend on your bones, the shapes, the internal external rotation of your legs, what's going on at your knee. So I want you just to take a peek and just see where you automatically set up. My heel is like toward the top of my arch, kind of like in line with my big toe, little toe mound. It's totally fine. So from here, we're going to focus on the right leg for a moment. We're going to bend and straighten the front leg, working our way to triangle, but we're flexed now as much as we want to be. We're going to reach the head of the femur into the hip socket as we straighten the leg, as the tibia, as the shin bone reaches down toward the floor. So like pulling those two apart as we straighten the leg. Because again, the knee acts as a mechanical lever of the two. And then come back into a flexed position. Play with the range here, see if you can flex maybe a little bit more. Maybe that means that your knee is just slightly going over your ankle. Probably okay. How does it feel? And then again, create that distancing as you come back out. And then one more time, bend. And then one more time, straighten. Stay in this straightened position. Both big toe, little toe mound, heel into the floor. Start to press down a bit more. Maybe start to drag back a little bit. Your pelvis, we're gonna start to rotate. Sternum, pelvis, squaring up with one another. We're going to rotate just to where we can't rotate anymore. Probably not going to be a lot of rotation. Then, playing with triangle a little differently, come into your triangle pose. Seeing how it felt to move into triangle with a little bit of rotation of your pelvis toward the upper left-hand corner of your mat. So feet are still pressing down, still slightly dragging together. Pressing the right hand into the block, reaching the left up. So if we were to come back to that starfish analogy that we use in the first tensegrity practice, where we're moving from center and we're evenly distributing or globally distributing load through all of our limbs, including our head, can these 5 points be equal right now? we're not only using the right leg and right arm, but we're also creating equal work on the left side body. Take a full breath in, and then as you exhale, bend that knee. Slowly come up to warrior two. Take an inhale here, and then exhale, hands to the mat, downward facing dog. And again, just compare the two sides, right and left. And then step the left foot forward, coming into warrior two. Come into that position, sense where you're at in space, how things are being distributed, then take a peek. So it's really funny because in my body, my left heel is almost always toward, almost lined up with my right heel. Again, we're asymmetrical depending on whatever is going on this side of my pelvis, and the opposite side is going to determine my range of motion and my alignment. And I feel fine here. I feel good. Hip, knee, toes are tracking. All right, stability through that back leg, but we're focusing on the front. So shin reaches toward the foot, thigh reaches toward the hip socket as we straighten the leg. I don't think we had our arms out last time. We can do that here just to see how that extra load might play a part. And then bend, coming back into warrior two. So flexing the knee. Knee is meant to flex. Your range is, I don't know, your range. You'll figure that out. And then tibia toward the ankle, femur toward the hip socket, coming back into that straight leg. And then bend again. And then one more time. It's a lot. We're working a lot of the front leg, but what's happening in the back foot? And then come into your straight leg. Press the 3 points of both feet down, and then gently start to pull them toward one another just to feel a little bit more of your midline light up. Pelvis, we rotate just as much as we have. Sternum and pelvis square. We rotate a little bit, keep the action of the legs of the feet, then come into triangle pose. Push down through the left hand arm, reach the right up. Crown of the head toward the front of the room, or whatever direction it's facing. Evenly distributing, globally responding to these compressive, tensile, torquing, whatever else loads. Take a full breath in. As you exhale, soften that front knee. Make your way back up. Warrior two. Take a breath in, and then exhale, hands to the mat, downward facing dog. Take a moment just to feel and explore the two sides. Initiate your plank with the lower part of your leg, the shin reaching toward the heels. And then initiate your downward facing dog on your exhale at your hips. And then inhale out to your high plank. And then exhale, knees to the floor, chest to the floor. Any size cobra. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. One full inhale, exhale. And then we're going to step the right foot forward, last little bit of movement, and come up into high crescent lunge. And again, neutral range of the spine. Maybe that means you rotate the pelvis one way or another. Maybe that means you shorten the stance. Maybe it means you have to lengthen it. I don't know. From here, push down through the right foot. Reach forward. Bring the left knee up. And then rotate. So movement's coming from the hip socket to warrior three. And then we're going to bend that left leg, coming back the way we just went. Bring that leg over in front of the right, coming into a figure four. And then come back up to stand. Notice right side compared to the left side. How did you distribute weight? Moving through those different angles, balancing on the one leg. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, place the hands to the mat, step it back to downward facing dog. From the tibia, inhale, out to high plank. Exhale, push back into downward facing dog, initiating that movement at your hips. Take a full breath in, and then as you exhale, step the left foot forward, and then inhale, come up to high crescent lunge. Make whatever adjustments you need. Stable, strong left leg, foot. We're going to start to just hinge forward, leaning forward, pressing the left foot down, doing what we need to do to come up into warrior three, I think. Shoot, I don't remember what we did on the other side. Whatever. And then super slow, we're just going to do this side differently. Bring the knee up, which is life. Life is just full of variability. Bring the knee up, slowly start to rotate, head of the femur in the hip socket within your range of motion that you can control, out to warrior three. So we'll just do warrior three twice on this side. And then come back the way we went. Woo, bring that leg on top of the left, sitting into figure four on this side. And then we're going to place the right foot down. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant the hands, step it back, downward facing dog. Last time, initiate plank with the tibia, reaching toward the heel. And then on your exhale, initiating at your hip crease. And then take a full breath in, exhale it out. And then come on down to your knees. Make them as wide as you'd like. Sit back into child's pose. Take just a few moments here before we make our way onto our back, setting up for our final resting position. If we were to think about life and how we move every day, it's rare that we're repeating the exact same patterns over and over again. There's just our body really doesn't work that way. There's variety, there's variability, there's just circumstances. So I like to use the analogy of getting in and out of your car. We've been driving for X amount of years. We either have a high car, a low car, a regular car, height car, but you get in and out, same side. You're always loading one leg, maybe a little bit more different than the other leg. And then if you want to add to the variability, you might be wearing heels, you might be carrying a bunch of bags that you want to put on the front seat. And if you're like me, you get into your driver's seat and then you move that load to the front seat. So we just move and we don't think about what we're moving or how we're moving in everyday life. And so when we get onto our yoga mat, if we do things maybe a little bit differently than how we usually do it, that in my mind is like helps us carry over into everyday life, maybe a little bit more than a typical perfect yoga practice, because there is no such thing. And since we're so asymmetrical, that brings me to, do we have to keep in any type of movement practice, whether it's with extra load, lifting weights, or whatnot, do we have to keep reps, the amount of breaths that we're holding a pose the same? Does it really matter if the quality of work, if the intensity of work, if the energetic internal focus and creation is happening? Those are just things I like to think of, that I like to bring to my practice when I want to explore, because I just feel like, who knows? I don't know. I don't have the answers. That's why exploring is so great. So make your way from child's pose onto your back, setting up for your Shavasana. And you can stay there for as long as you'd like. Leaving you with the thought that form really does follow function. And depending on the function and the purpose of whatever body part we are utilizing, there's not going to be a perfect shape or perfect position or even a perfect alignment, in my opinion. It's going to be based on the function of that body part, the structure and position of that body part, and lots of other factors. So move through your practice, keeping an open mind, thinking form follows function. Move through your practice as your body being a tensegrity toy, and you're just doing your absolute best to globally respond to every little bit of work that's happening, from fingertips to toes to the eyebrows. Mostly just move and enjoy your movement and be appreciative of your movement. And thank you for practicing with me again.